Hey guys, Phil from Trail Talk here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the 2022 Polygon lineup. So jumping right into it. So we'll start with the Polygon Siskiu lineup because that's the most popular lineup of bikes that most of you kind of want to see. So starting off with the Siskiu N9. So that's probably one of the more popular enduro bikes that they've got. Well, the only one, but for 2022, I'm not sure what's happening here. I think Spinning Wheels on YouTube. I'll put a link in the description. He's got an update. So I'm not too sure what's happening with the frame, but I know there's been delays in production. So I don't know if it's this frame, new frame. Sorry, I don't really know that at the moment. But yeah, it's kind of looking early next year, probably around February, March, that we'll probably hear a little bit more about that. But yeah, if you can find one in stock around the world at the moment, they're pretty slim, but it's a great value bike. So I would definitely recommend checking that one out. So if I'm going to give it probably a rating, I think it's going to be probably around a good rating here. So pushing towards amazing in terms of value, but the geometry is getting on the older side. So if you do prefer a more playful enduro bike, I think this is going to be a great option for you. So moving on to the Siskiu T range, so the T8, which is my bike. So if you want to check out a review, I've done that on my channel. So link in the description for that as well. But yeah, I think it's probably one of the best value trail bikes on the market. The geometry is bang up to date, 65.5-degree head angle, 77 seat angle, 135 mil in the rear, 140 up front on the 29er, and then the 27.5 in the small and medium. That's got 140 in the rear, 150 up front. So great spec, Fox 34 rhythm, Fox DPS shock, SLX 12 speed, 4-piston Tektro brakes, nice long dropper post. It's not much you really want to change here. So really think this is a real standout. So definitely going to have to give this one amazing value. But if you can't afford the T8, I think the T7 is a great option. So jumping onto the T7. So you're getting great spec here. To be honest, in terms of practical terms, the only real difference that you're going to notice is probably the fork and then the brakes. You get the same brake up front, so you get the 4-piston, but in the rear, you're only getting that 2-piston. So you do notice a little bit less power in the rear, but that fork's going to be the main difference. So with a price difference between them of around about $500 to $600, you could find a secondhand fork and upgrade it. So if you prefer the color of the T7, you could get a little cheaper there and then upgrade the fork in the future. And also that rear caliper, you could probably buy that separately and just install that. But yeah, the rear shock performance-wise, pretty similar to the Fox DPS, that RockShox Select Plus. And then the 12-speed dual drivetrain, same range, pretty much shifting performance. It's just slightly heavier. So wouldn't be concerned too much missing out there if you go the T7. So jumping onto the Siskiu D series. So if you aren't familiar with the Polygon Siskiu lineup, it's the Siskiu N for enduro, T for trail, D for downcountry. So it's going to be more of those kind of XC to trail, in between that kind of realm where you want something a little bit more efficient and a little bit more playful. So starting off with a D5. So D5 is going to be really for someone who is that kind of like hardtail money, but wants a little bit more forgiveness from a dual suspension. So you're not going to be getting a lot of the benefits kind of of the Siskiu D6 and D7 in terms of that through axle in the rear. You get a quick release. It is only available in 27.5-inch wheels in small, medium, and large. So if you're sizing concerns or wheel size and stuff like that, you're kind of a little bit limited there. And you're getting that 2x drivetrain and a coil fork up front. So it really is for someone who just wants a dual suspension, a little bit more comfort, but is riding kind of more fire trails and smoother single track and stuff like that. You will notice a fair bit more performance from the Siskiu D6 and D7. So if you're looking at both of those bikes, if you're kind of not going to be upgrading too much, I think the Siskiu D7 is probably the best option. But if you are looking for a good little platform to build on and you're kind of looking at a more entry-level price point, I think D6 is probably the one to go for, especially if you're going to be keeping the bike for a while and upgrading it. So the Siskiu D6 isn't on the Polygon website because it isn't exclusive to Bikes Online and Bicycles Online in Australia and the US, which I do have an affiliate link in the description. So check that out if you do want to get one of the bikes. But yeah, jumping into the individual bikes. So starting off with the D7. So this is the 2022 colors. So no difference from 2021 to 2022. So very similar spec to the T7. So, but instead of 12 speed, you're getting 11 speed Shimano, but similar range. So you're getting that 11 to 51 tooth. So really good range there. Tubeless rims. So tubeless rim profile. You will need tires, tapes, and all that kind of stuff like that. That RockShox Recon fork, really good shock in the RockShox Deluxe Select. dropper posts, and some really good geometry as well, especially at this kind of price point. There's not much that competes with this bike other than the Vitus Mythique. So I think it's going to be a great option for a lot of those people getting on their first dual suspension bike. So dropper posts, as I said. So in terms of geometry, nice roomy reach on this kind of bike. I think it's 465 millimeters on a size large. Then you're getting a 120 mil of travel front and rear. So more than enough for this kind of riding. The only little negatives of the bike, you are getting a non-boost fork. So upgradability in the future, that might be something if you're upgrading a fork, something to take into consideration. But there are kits that you can kind of get to space out the rotor and stuff like that to make it boost as well if you want to use the stock wheel set and you're upgrading the fork. So that is something to take into consideration. I think Regular Guy Mountain Biking did a video on that, so I'll link that in the description as well. But yeah, that's a good option too. So yeah, if I'm going to have to give this one a rating, I'm going to have to give this one a good, in between good and amazing. I think it's got some great value. It's a few tweaks with the geometry and saying that boost up front would be nice. Slightly shorter seat tube for that dropper post length because they are getting longer these days. That would be nice to see a little bit shorter, but yeah, I think it's a great option. So yeah, as I said, if you're going to be upgrading a fair bit, I think the D6 is probably the best option. But if you're not going to be doing too much upgrading, I think the D7 is the better option of the two. So jumping onto the Xtrada line now. So we'll get into this category here so it makes it a bit easier to navigate. So I will jump into the Syncline first. So if you aren't too familiar with the Syncline range, it's Polygon's carbon hardtails. So if you're looking for a very affordable carbon bike, it's probably one of the most affordable carbon hardtails on the market. So it's got a nice stiff frame, so it's really responsive. A little bit of forgiveness in the rear, which is good to see as well. But yeah, it's nice and efficient. So if you're looking for a great spec hardtail to kind of tackle that kind of more trail and XC kind of stuff, I think it's going to be a good option for you there. So jumping onto the C5, I think this is probably the best value option out of these. So as I said, you're getting that great carbon frame, 1x drivetrain, so Shimano 12 speed there. I think it's, we'll double check on the specs, but I think it is 12 speed. Yep, so 12 speed there. Some SLX, some Dior. And then you're getting Fox 32 fork, so the performance series. And then, yeah, so I think it's a great option if you're kind of looking for that carbon hardtail, especially if you want to upgrade a bit as well. It's a good option. The only downfall is you are getting a 27.2 inch dropper post, 27.2 millimeter seat post diameter. So that does limit your dropper post options there. But in saying that, on this kind of bike, I don't think you really need much more than a 125 mil dropper post. Riding this kind of bike on the XC and lighter trail stuff where you don't have too much crazy stuff, I think that 125 mil drop would be more than enough for most people. So again, probably going to have to give this one a nice good value here. So still a great bike and probably one of the best value carbon bikes on the market, but a few little tweaks and we get up to that amazing range there. So jumping into the Xtrada range now, which is probably one of the most popular bikes that Polygon has. So the main difference is that you're going to notice between all of them. So the Xtrada 5 has a 2x and it also has that quick release axle front and rear. The Xtrada 6 has the same frame, so that quick release front and rear, but you're getting a better suspension fork up front and you're also getting a 1x drivetrain. And then the Xtrada 7, you're getting that air fork, bit more range with the drivetrain as well, and through axles front and rear. So if you do want to hit a little bit rougher stuff, the Xtrada 7 is probably going to track a little bit better because you got those through axles front and rear. But I think for this kind of bike and the price point that you're kind of looking at, I think the Xtrada 6 would be my pick of the bunch. Because if you're starting to get towards the Xtrada 7, there's more, you'd be leaning more towards some more other through axle bikes. You're going to be sending a little bit more, but I think the Xtrada 6 is that Goldilocks zone for this style of bike, because to be honest, on this kind of style of bike, that kind of more trail XC hardtail, so the geometry is not too crazy. It's really in that nice moderate zone, down country as I like to call it, that is keeps it nice and efficient, but there's still plenty of stability there. So you're getting that 1x11 Shimano Dior drivetrain, but with a huge range. So it's the 11 to 51 tooth, I believe. Let me just double check. Yeah, so 11 to 51 tooth there. So one of my favorite drivetrains on the market. Not 12 speed money, but you're getting pretty much the same range. And then the geometry as well. Nice steep seat angle, 75 degrees on a hardtail, which is good to see. 67 head angle, which is nice and balanced for this kind of bike, and 450mm reach, which is pretty comparable with a lot of the other bikes in this kind of price point. So the Marin Bobcat Trail 4, a little bit longer. So if you want some a bit more stability there, I think that's going to be a good option. But I think the Polygon is a really nice, versatile bike. And again, the only real downside that I can see is that 27.2-inch seat post diameter, but you do get internal dropper post routing. And as I said, you don't need too much drop on these kind of bikes, so I wouldn't be too concerned. And you also do get a tapered head tube. So if you do want to run a tapered fork, you just need to change that bottom headset cup in that one, and you will have the perfect setup there. So I think it's a great platform to upgrade on if you're looking for any kind of your first true mountain bike. And then, we have to give that one a rating. So I think, again, you're kind of looking at a rating wise for this one. I think we're going to have to give it a good rating as well. Bordering, again, that kind of amazing value, but I think good because there's a few little things that we could change, but I think it's overall a great package. So moving on now to the Premier range. So the Premier is kind of going to be for someone who's really just dipping their toes into mountain biking and wants something that they can ride on fire trails and really smooth single track. So you're not seeing those one-by drivetrains, because a lot of people that are getting this bike are going to be using it for general road riding, leisure, and that kind of stuff like that. So I don't judge these bikes too much. It's more of a price point thing. So yeah, if you're looking for a bike to just get into the sport, not doing real trails like you would kind of on the Xtrada, but yeah, I think that's what these kind of bikes are for. So we won't look too much into that, but I think they're a great value option. Most bikes around this kind of price point and what they're kind of designed for, they're very similar. I wouldn't be judging too much. I'd just be going on price point. What's the best value for money in terms of price? So they're up there in terms of the most competitive in those kind of style of bikes. And then the Cascade 3 is a similar boat as those Premiers as well. So then moving on to the last kind of more mountain bike style of things, I guess. So the Trid series. So you've got the Trid Dirt Jumper, which again is one of the best value dirt jumpers on the market at the moment. And then you got the Trid ZZ, which is the slope style bike. So you got the dual suspension there. So suspension front and rear. And I think they're both great value options. The Trid is probably one of the best value dirt jump bikes on the market at the moment. So if you are looking for something, this would probably be my pick of dirt jumps. So going to give that one amazing value. And then on the Trid ZZ, we're going to give it good, a little bit more expensive. But again, this is kind of what you're expecting at this slopestyle bikes. They are on the expensive side. And as the Trid ZZ goes, that's actually pretty affordable for a slopestyle bike. And they're bulletproof. I mean, Sam Reynolds used to ride them all the time. And then now Anthony Mazzeri is riding them as well. So they're great bikes. But we did miss one at the start. So going back up, we've got the Bromo range. So the Bromo N8 and N7. So great value e-bikes. If you're looking for an e-bike, I think they're probably some of the best options on the market. The new rear suspension layout, the IFS, we'll go and have a closer look so you can kind of see what it looks like. But essentially it isolates the wheel path from the leverage curve and all that kind of stuff like that. So it feels very isolated in those sections. So when you're pedaling, the suspension's moving completely independent of that. So you just feel like you've got a super stable sailing platform, but then it's just like so active and so planted. It's really a weird feeling. It's probably one of the bikes that I've ridden. I'm just like, oh, that's kind of a bit weird because I've never felt that before, but it's just so sensitive, but it still stays so level on the climbs. And then when you're going down the rough stuff, it just eats it up. It's kind of more of a plow bike. So if you are looking for an e-bike just to absolutely plow the descents, it's one of the best value options out there. Only downside, slightly smaller battery, but for what I use e-bikes, I ride them as I would my normal bike. So that's not too much of a concern for me, but it is for some. And then there is no room for a bottle in there, bottle cage mounts and stuff like that. I'm sure you could probably rig something up to fit it in there, like a lot of people do with the Siskiu N series. But there is no mount. So that is another concern for some people. But the spec that you're getting for the money is absolutely amazing. So I would definitely check out those bikes. So that pretty much rounds it up. If you got any questions about the bikes, definitely leave a comment below. There's some of the best value bikes on the market. I really do like the Polygon bikes, especially that Siskiu T8 and T7. Those are probably my favorite value. I think they're probably the best value trail bikes on the market at the moment. And then the rest of them, they're good value as well. So you can't really go wrong if you're getting one of the bikes. But yeah, as always, guys, thanks for watching. See ya.